We've been talking about the network structure of the web and how it can be used for ranking search results. And the analysis of network structure is a crucial component of commercial web search as it's carried out in practice today. The use of links and the analysis of links to make sure that the most important items rank highly in the list and are being seen by users. But of course, search engines in practice use many, many different sources of information, and it's really impressive how they put all this together to produce the kind of high quality results that we see. So in addition to links, which we've been talking about, of course, there's also a heavy use of text content. And in a sense, actually, our discussion of search began with text content, and links kind of came in as a supplement to make up for some of the deficiencies, some of the things that text couldn't actually get at. And text and links, in fact, exist in this close interrelationship. So for example, the particular text that you click on, right? So a web page says, I'm a student at Cornell University, and you click on that word Cornell University, chances are you're going to end up at the Cornell homepage. That's called the anchor text for that link. And anchor text is usually a particularly potent descriptor of the page it leads to, right? Many things on the web that say Cornell University and are clickable lead to Cornell. So text and links are certainly, two of the bedrock components of what search engines use. But they're using many, many other sources of information too. So for example, they're using feedback from all the clicks that they get. Imagine, for example, the search engine has a query that many, many, many people ask, and it ranks the results, and it finds that many people, most people, skip over the first result and click initially on the second one. That's evidence that maybe the second one's actually better, and no matter what the ranking initially thought, you should begin to promote the second one. You can also do this at the level of individuals. If you're signed into your search engine and it accumulates some history on you, it might actually begin to build a model of the sorts of pages that you want to see and can adapt the search results that way, right? Personalized to you. And finally, it's using information that's actually based on space and time. So space, for example, in the sense of geography. Suppose someone goes to a search engine and they type UW, just two letters, UW. What do they want? Well, it's probably an acronym for something. And if they're typing it in Seattle, Washington, probably they mean the homepage of the University of Washington. But if they're typing those same two letters and they live in Madison, Wisconsin, and that's where they're doing it from, they probably mean the homepage of the University of Wisconsin. And so in fact, the latitude and longitude from which the query is coming can actually give a lot of information about what the right answer should be for search. And the same thing with time. So think about a query like flowers, right? So it's interesting to actually look at data for how queries for flowers change over the course of the year, right? How much people query for that word. And certainly in late spring and early summer, you see a lot of queries for this because people are beginning to plant flowers in their yard, in their garden, so forth. But when you look at this data, you also see this big spike sort of in the middle of February. And certainly in Ithaca, you look at this spike and you say, what's going on? They're not planting flowers. It's winter. And then you realize they're not planting flowers. That's Valentine's Day. They're buying flowers. And so in fact, what people mean when they type that one-word query flowers is very different whether it's happening in early February or whether it's happening in late spring or early summer. All of these are sources of information that go into the really complex machinery that powers modern commercial search engines. And all of it's being used to produce the kind of results that we see. And there's one other thing that has a large effect on search as it's carried out in practice, and that's a principle that we've seen many times throughout the course. It's the principle that the world reacts to what you do. Now, how does that work in the case of search? Well, when people first began designing search engines, and remember they were thinking about this notion of information retrieval, searching for things in libraries, right? The idea that you're sort of ranking a relatively static collection of documents. And when you think about the problem that way, you think about how you're going to rank web pages. And then to your surprise, you discover that the authors of the web pages have some interest in this also, right? Because these authors of web pages are people who want to get attention, want to command an audience. Maybe they're trying to sell something, they're running a business through their web page. And it's very important to them that they score highly in your search engine results because a lot of traffic is coming that way, right? There are people whose businesses, a large component of it is based on the fact that they score highly on certain search results. And so there's a big incentive for them to author their pages in a way that scores highly. And they will work, or they will hire people to help them figure out what is it that's causing them to be ranked, say, 5th, and how can they move up to 4th, or 3rd, or 2nd, or 1st, right? So it actually becomes this complicated process. It's actually a feedback loop in which the search engines are creating ranking functions based on how people author pages. But people are authoring pages based on how the search engines are ranking them. And that feedback loop means that search will always be a moving target, a balance between the behavior of the people creating the rankings and the behavior of the people writing pages, right? Everyone in the world is reacting to what everyone else is doing, right? It's a fundamental principle that we've seen in game theory and many other settings. Now, relatively quickly, this process actually acquired an extra dimension as search engines began developing explicit markets for search results. Right? So the search results began to split into two parts. The algorithmic or organic search results, as they called them, the ones that were produced by these ranking algorithms, but then also the sponsored search results, where people could actually bid to have ads for their web pages be placed very highly. These markets turned out to evolve using ideas that we've actually seen in auctions and in matching markets, and became extremely lucrative businesses. That is how search engines now generate most of their revenue. So that's the issue that we'd like to turn to next. How search went from being just an algorithmic problem, a problem of finding the pages that you want, to also a market, and the ways in which ideas from auctions, ideas from game theory affected how those markets in the end operated.